Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people, and a lady who has been in the press for the last 2 years, and we've seen her journey, and it's been a miraculous one of evolving and of family and of personal introspection, and she's here today. How are you, Kellie Maloney?
I'm very well, thank you.
It's so nice to see you. We've seen your story, and I think the nation has fallen in love with you, and that's interesting because I don't think you necessarily expected that, did you?
No, I was quite shocked at the reception I got and the acceptance I got. Even today, just walking down the street here, a black guy came up to me and he just said, "Kellie, can I give you a cuddle?" He said, "I'm so proud to know you, and so we followed your story. You're one very brave person, and you've made it so easy for a lot of other people." And them sort of things are really inspirational and very warming to me, because I did fear the worst.
It was very interesting. I mean, the last couple of years has seen 3 very high-profile transgender people fighting the cause. We had Stephanie Hurst on radio, we had Caitlyn Jenner in America, and you here. And I think you were the first that people sort of went, okay, explain it to me. And what you were great about, you understood that for many people, it is complicated and difficult to understand. And it does take some time to digest, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're honest, I still don't understand why it happened to me. You don't choose this journey. I had a fantastic lifestyle. Caitlyn Jenner had a fantastic lifestyle. Stephanie Hurst had, lost her job on the radio to start with. Gender chooses you, so you have no say in the matter. You either accept it and you come to terms with it and you go on this journey, or you fight it. You become miserable, you become depressed. And it seems the older you get, the more depressed you get, the more you are at tension with yourself and everyone around you. And I found I was destroying everything around me, including my career. So I had to walk away from it, and I had to accept it and just let nature take its course, shall we say.
We're going to start at the beginning, and we're going to go back to your childhood in a moment. But Frank Maloney was an interesting character who I was lucky enough to interview a couple of times. You were formidable, quite angry, certainly abrupt, and nothing like Kellie is now. Do you think that character came out of some inner frustration? Was it anything to do with that?
I think it was. I was always fighting to be accepted. I chose one of the hardest professions in the world, and I was lucky enough to make it to the top by signing Lennox Lewis, and I had a 12-year relationship there that was unbelievable. And I lived with a load of sharks, and I realised that if I didn't play the same game as the sharks, I didn't bite back, I would be eaten alive. So yeah, and I had this gender issue that I was always suppressing inside me, so I had more than a lot of the other promoters, shall we say, baggage to carry. And yeah, it made me angry, it made me volatile, and I suppose it made me very abrupt and made me say things that I probably shouldn't have said throughout my life. But all that's in the past now, and now I'm so at ease and so relaxed with myself. I feel like I've been reborn again, and I'm a totally different person.
There are 2 questions that come to me on the back of that. The first is, do you wish you'd have done this 30 years ago? But then again, if you'd have done it 30 years ago, you wouldn't have your 3 gorgeous daughters.
There is that, and I wouldn't have had the career I had. And 30 years ago, I may have been so ridiculed in the press, because at them time transgender people were laughing stocks. They were seen as freaks, they were seen as perverts, they were seen as misfits, and it was something I always feared, because I read every story of transgender people and I saw what it done to them, being a postman, a policeman, or being April Ashley, who at that time was the highest profile transgender person in the country, and they totally destroyed them.
Did you always know one day you would become Kellie?
No, I really tried to beat it. I battled and battled, but in the end, as I said, you have no choice in the journey. It takes you, and once, I remember as my counsellor telling me, once you lift the lid on the Pandora of docs, there's no putting the lid back. And I kept the lid on it for a very, very long time, and I started to experiment to see how comfortable I felt. And I felt so comfortable that I couldn't put the lid back on the box, and it just, Kellie grew. The 2 personalities in me were fighting each other, and Kellie's person, though Frank was very strong, obviously Kellie was a lot stronger in a different way, and a more determined person than Frank, and Kellie won the battle.
Silly question, but when did the name Kellie be the name that you became? When did you decide that Kellie would become your name?
I don't know. When I sort of went onto a transgender website that I was told by my counsellor, and the counsellor I used on the telephone, I used my name as Kellie because I didn't want him to know who I was. I didn't want no one to know who I was, and I think Kellie was just short like Frank. I was like trying to play with short names. I like short names, so and then I quite liked it, and I stuck with it because I know quite a few girls have chosen a name but have changed their name later on in their transitioning. But I've been very happy with Kellie. And Kellie Maloney sort of rhymes, doesn't it, like Frank Maloney?
That's lovely. And then we look at you as a child. Were you always in the back of your head fighting who you were, or did this come on much later, post-puberty? Were you a happy child?
I think I was a happy child. My mother says I was quite withdrawn at certain times. I liked to play, but I knew I was different, but I didn't know what it was. I had no concept of what it was. I just felt different. I had friends, boys and girls. I liked playing games. I tried to play every game the boys played. I competed because I wanted to be one of the boys. I enjoyed girls' company. I was happier in female company, but I never let that be known. So I just always, I took up going football, and my dad took me to Millwall, and I became a fanatical Millwall supporter. I took up sport because that's what my dad wanted. And I had two brothers, so I was always competing with my brothers, and I didn't want to be different, because in them days, if you had ginger hair or you had a stutter, you were picked on.
Then we look at relationships, and you get to the point where you meet your first wife. Was that a point where you questioned it, or was that still normal at that stage and you were in love with her and that was all okay?
No, I was definitely in love with Jackie. I met Jackie when we were both very young, and we grew up together in Peckham, and we went out a bit, and I felt comfortable with Jackie because I didn't have to prove myself to everybody. I had a girlfriend, and I didn't use her as a shield or anything, but I just felt so comfortable. Where my friends would love chasing girls, have string of girlfriends. I grew to love Jackie, and we split up over some personal issues, our families, typical of Peckham, and we went our separate ways. And then later in my life, when my family split up and I moved to live with a friend called Alan Ferris, it was sort of the first gay person I'd ever met. He worked in the civil service where I worked as a trainee restaurant manager, and he was looking for a flat and I was looking for somewhere to live. And for some unknown reason, we bonded in a very strange way. It was the most oddest thing ever. It was this South London boy with this outrageous flamboyant gay character that was, and in them days gay still wasn't fully accepted, but he did not care, and he taught me to be myself. And I actually told him that I had this inner thing and how I felt, and I said I always wished I was born a girl. I said I used to go to bed at night and cry that I could be a girl. And he said, well, if that's what you want to be, just do it. He said, why worry? And I started living as Kellie. When I wasn't at work, I grew my hair long. In them days, your clothes were quite ambiguous, so no one really. I used to wear flare trousers, sort of heel shoes, and quite flowery shirts. So no one really bothered because you had David Bowie, you had everyone like that out and about. So, and I used to wear beads and everything. And then in the evenings I would dress as Kellie and I would go out with Alan. And
how old were you at this stage?
I was about 17 and a half, 18, and my young brother lived with me, and I was always worried that he would find out. And Alan used to say, "Oh, well, if he sees any of the clothes, we'll just say they're mine." And as soon as my brother we'd hear him at the door, I would go into the bedroom and change back into sort of Frank mode, with making sure I'd taken my makeup off and things like that. I wasn't very good with the makeup then. And then my dad came back into my life, and out of the blue I panicked, and I went and got my hair cut. I rejoined the boxing club and started going back, and I sort of started distancing myself from Alan. But my dad took a real liking to Alan, so that was okay, because I feared, because my dad really never knew no one gay or met any gay people at that time, and the world was very different then, very different. You was either heterosexual or, in them days, they were known as queers, or it wasn't liberated.
I guess you're either straight or wrong, I suppose.
Yeah, black or white, wasn't it? And that's how I saw the world. There was no grey area, but Alan was in this grey area, and he just didn't care. And for some, I don't know how it happened, but Jackie phoned me or something. She found out where I worked, and she phoned me, and she asked to meet me, and she started coming and staying at the flat. And again, Alan really liked her, and she liked Alan. And she asked to move in the flat, and because she said she was having problems at home, and I said yes, and she moved in, and within 6 months we got married. And I thought again I could beat it and lock it away. And then we had Emma, our child, and then Alan was godfather to Emma, and he stayed in my life and Jackie's life and Emma's life. But when I went back into boxing, I actually panicked about Alan, and I have to put my hand on my heart and say I was very disloyal to him. I distanced him and never spoke to him because I was frightened someone would pick it up in the boxing world as I grew and think, because again, no one ever came out in the sports world or anything like that. And one of the first things I'd done when my transition story broke was I searched to find Alan Ferris, and I found him, and we made our friendship up, and I told him what I'd done, and he said he knew that, and that he'd kept all the cuttings and everything about my journey. And I'm glad to say we've become very good friends again.
Oh, that's wonderful. At 17, did you wonder whether you were straight, gay, bi? Was sexuality and sex an issue, or was that always very different for you?
I don't really know. Alan would say to me, "Oh, do you fancy anyone if we went into a pub?" He said, "I know you don't fancy me," and I used to laugh and say, "But you don't fancy girls, Alan, so I'm safe." So it was quite. It was a very educational time, shall I say? I think I was frightened, very much. I'm still frightened of my sexuality now. I have no idea of my sexuality. I've been single now for nearly 6 years. Since I split with my partner Tracy. I've been out on a few dinner dates. I have been, probably about 5 or 6 dates I've been out on, but they don't seem to hold my interest. I think I want to be stimulated mentally before I become stimulated anywhere else. And right. And I've found most of the people I've been out with quite boring, and I don't know if they're intimidated by me. I find that hard if they are, but I do tend to talk a lot, but I find they don't be able to hold conversations, and I don't know if I judge them on the standards of Frank, because I was always sort of bubbly when I went out, always sort of smart, and if I was with a girl, even just talking, I'd want to buy her a bottle of champagne and that probably was just the show side of me, or something nice, I'd take it, and I haven't found that, but I do find men find it hard to, I think, date transsexual women, and I think that's the third chapter of my life now. I came to terms with myself in my first chapter and started coming out, and the second chapter I accepted myself and started living properly, and I found myself, so I'm very comfortable in my body now and with my gender. And my third chapter is, do I want a partner, be it a man, be it a woman, or do I just want to stay alone with my friends, family, and my 2 loyal dogs? Because I do have a very social life, a very good social life. I have a very happy family around me, a contented family, and I do consider my daughters and everything I do about either upsetting them or pushing the boundaries too far. But I don't say no, because I may walk into a room one day and a light may go on in my head, and that may be the person that I would pursue. I have tried a few dating websites without much luck. When I tell them that I'm transgender, it freaks them out. I get told how nice I am and they'd love to take me out, and I tell them I have a lot of baggage, and they go, "We've all got baggage. Oh, you've been married and divorced and you've got kids." I went, "Yes, all of that, but one more baggage." I remember telling one guy, then I said, the others I used to tell when we were chatting online, but this one person I didn't tell, I don't know why. And we got talking and it went on, and all of a sudden he sent me his phone number and he asked me to phone him, and I phoned him without realising that I hadn't told him who I was, that I was transgender. So we were talking. I said, you said you're very open-minded, and he went, yeah, of course I'm. He said, I'm a man of the world. I went, oh, I said, that's good. He said, we've all got baggage. I went, yeah. I said, but I've got quite a lot. He went, well, I've got a lot of baggage. I went, not like what I've got. I said, have you heard of, and he was quite into sport, and I think that's why I got a bit muddled, because we were talking quite a bit of sport, and he said, I've never known a woman who likes sport as much and understands sport. And I sort of said to him, have you heard of Frank Maloney, Kellie Maloney? He went, yeah. He went, that boxing promoter cut his dick off. And I went, yeah. And I sort of swallowed, and I went, yeah. I went, well, that's the baggage I carry. And he went, you're fucking Frank Maloney. I went, well, I was. I said, I'm now Kellie Maloney. I said, and I'm completely medically modified female. I said, but I honestly went, how can I go out with you? He said, what will people think? They'll think I'm gay and just want to go out with a man. And I went, oh, do you know what? I said, forget it. And I just put the phone down. And I think that really set me back quite a bit, because I'm quite confident, and I don't think I was, and I believe I'm quite strong. But for some unknown reason, that really set me back, and I cancelled all my public engagements for about 3 or 4 weeks, until I finally sat with my counsellor and spoke to her, and then I got my confidence back again and thought, oh, do you know what? It's his loss. Let me get on with my life.
How are you as we sit here right now? Are you happy? Are you confident again, or is it still coming back?
No, it doesn't come out. I laugh at the issue now. I actually can tell the story now, where at first I never told my agents why I cancelled all my work. They just thought I was ill because I was very quiet and sort of become very introvert for a little while. No, now I laugh about it, and I can tell the story now.
When you were in your days as Frank, managing all these incredibly masculine boxers, and then you're surrounded by all these manly of men, that must have sort of set you back again, because it's so confusing.
I don't think it did, because I actually enjoyed boxing, and I sort of cut myself off totally from that side of life, the Kellie side, and I just purely lived and worked boxing 24/7. But then, because I was getting more and more successful, and I was always feared that I could slip up and the papers would find out, and I knew that would totally destroy everything. And I had my children, and I'd met Jackie, Tracy, and we'd got married. Well, we'd started living together in 94, just after the Bruno fight, and then we got married after the Henrietta Winder fight in Las Vegas. And I was very happy, and I actually thought I'd put the lid back on it and locked it away. And but again, certain things started affecting me in my life. I started drinking a lot more. I think that may be to compensate it. But when I went to work, I was purely focused on my work. I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say that. And I think I would have been as successful as Kellie, given the opportunity. But we might know, because I've gone back into boxing now in a smaller way, and I'm just starting out with a new young heavyweight who'll be fighting in March in Birmingham, having his first fight. So it's going to be an interesting journey. And I've got a young fighter called Tony Jones that's now had 5 fights and won all 5. So, but it's more of a personal challenge to me now, and something I have to prove to myself and prove to the world.
I'm still amazed when I put the TV on and see someone like Caitlyn Jenner say that she thinks gay marriage is wrong. That doesn't help your cause, does it? Because you should all be fighting for equality for everyone. It's amazing that in 2016, some people just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that I used to speak out about gay marriages, same-sex families, and I made comments about that. I wouldn't campaign in Camden in 2004 because there was too many gays, and what did they do for society? You know, I sit back now and I think, how the hell did I say things like that? How did I ever think like that? You know, that was that a defence mechanism? Was that just Frank being his arrogant self to get publicity? But I do know they were very wrong to make, because I hurt certain sections of society. And, you know, I'm now in a diverse section of society, and I've seen people on this journey that have been ridiculed, lost everything, and have committed suicide on the way, and not been able to make this journey. So it makes me go back and think about the things that I used to say. And, you know, that I hate myself for saying those things. But now I've taken off the blinkers. I see the world in technicolour. I don't just see black and white. You know, I see I see a grey area, I see a purple area, I see whatever colour's out there. I still have to admit, I do not quite understand the diversity or the trans umbrella, because it's massive. I mean, I learnt the other day there's about 26 different genders, you know, and it was.
What is that then? What are the 26?
I don't know. It was in the Spectator,
right? And
I was reading it, and it just went. You know, I'm still a great believer. The world is made up of men and women, heterosexual, or gays, members of the LGBT community. I do believe there's intersex, obviously, because that's a medical condition. There's non-binary, which is someone who doesn't want to choose. You know, I do find things like that, I won't say difficult, hard to understand, because I want to live as myself, be heterosexual or gay. I want to live as Kellie. I want to live as a female.
It's interesting you say that, though, heterosexual or gay. Do you not see it as a spectrum that some people are a bit gay and some people are more gay and some people are a bit straight and more straight, and therefore they're a bi in the middle, and it's a whole spectrum? Do you agree with that?
Except there's bi. I know I've met loads of people that are bi since, you know, because I go to a lot of LGBT functions and things like that. I accept the world is very diversified, and I suppose it's a choice of the individual. And
what confuses you the most then, as you sit here, having gone through what you've gone through? What still is the things that you can't quite grasp?
I can't grasp all the different genders. You know, I can't remember what they are now. I wish I'd brought the paper with me. I think it was 26 or 29 different genders, and I'm thinking, but that's that is really, I don't know. It just seems so. How confused? If that's confusion for me, how must it be confusion for other people? You know, and I live under the trans umbrella, which is which is very diversified. I think it's probably one of the biggest umbrellas there is. I think if people don't know what they are, the society have just bundled us all under the one umbrella.
One thing that you did teach me and that I saw in the papers, I've got this chin thing under here I want to get operated on, and I have a very small penis as well that I'd like to have extended, and I'm considering all this. Having seen your surgery, I'm not going anywhere near it. I mean, that picture of you after your facial surgery is one of the most disturbing and upsetting and worrying pictures I've ever seen. I don't know how you begin to deal with that. I mean, when you see that picture now, it must be terrifying.
I actually laugh at it now, but you have to remember, I really didn't remember much about that. I was in intensive care, and I was kept in a coma for 4.5 days. My daughter suffered all of that, and my 2 dogs, because they came to Belgium with me for the operation. And when whatever went wrong, but at the moment it's quite hard to talk about it, because I think there's legal proceedings going on about it. But I had facial surgery before that in Spain, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I wish I'd gone back to the Spanish doctors, because they were fantastic. But it was just something that was said to me by this other doctor that clicked in my head. And it was just, and I think it was more vanity, and obviously wanting to be very accepted and very perfect in all ways, because I was always worried that if I walked down the street, someone would point out and go, "Oh, that's a man in a dress." So and I didn't want that to happen, especially if I was out with my children.
Does that ever happen now?
No, but people do recognise me as Frank, but then I accept that because I'm quiet, and I don't mind that, because they're not rude. They'll just go, "Oh, Frank," and they look and go, "Oh, sorry." I go, "Oh, no, it's all right," because I'm very comfortable with that. It's not, I'm not a militant and I'm not an activist. As much as I like to go out and preach, and not preach, but help educate and get people to understand the gender issue, I'm not from the militant side, or I'm not really an activist. I'm just me, and I like to give back something to the community, because they helped me through some very dark moments.
I want to talk about your daughters, because I saw them on a TV show you did. It can't be easy, can it, when Dad suddenly says he's going to become Mum? And I know there was that wonderful discussion about, can I still call you Dad? They're such great ambassadors of you and what you've done to them, because the way they've dealt with it is very graceful. Others would have run a mile, because it's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't just the way I dealt with it. It was the way their mother dealt with it, Tracy. It was the way their big sister Emma dealt with it, and you got Emma had her own family, and I've got 2 grandchildren, and she was so good with them, and she made it easy, and I think children are a lot more liberated today than they are, except for if it happens in their family, it's quite a shock. But my girls have been very good. They've been great ambassadors. They actually speak at some LGB functions, and they meet with other trans people and talk to them about their children, because quite a few trans people have lost their family on the way. But I'm glad to say I hear much more, shall we say, welcoming stories these days. A lot more accepting it, and I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not it'll never be an easy journey, but it may come a time when no one will blink an eyelid. The newspapers won't even bother writing about it. They'll have found something else to ridicule and write about.
Was that ever a consideration for you, that this would be the thing you'd be defined for, and ultimately the thing that has given you the most coverage? I mean, I don't think anybody had more column inches in 2015 than Kellie Maloney, did she?
No, unfortunately I still get them, but not as bad. No, because I don't see myself as a trans person. I see myself as a human being, and I tell this to everybody else. When I speak, I'll always end that. You can think of what you like as me. You can see me as what you want. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a member of the human race, and I'm a human being. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm a female. And as long as I'm happy with that and I'm content with that, what you think doesn't really bother me.
And then we look at you physically now, and you've come through the worst of that surgery. Those pictures are long gone. Your face, you can't tell you've had any surgery. It's a miracle. Physically in yourself, are you well, and is everything good and as you want it to be?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with myself. I go to the gym on a regular basis. I really enjoy working out. I've changed my training programs. I walk my dogs for 2.5 hours a day. I watch what I eat. I'm very conscious of my weight, probably more than I ever was. I don't eat as much junk food. I don't drink as much, and I enjoy life. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable now and very, very at ease with myself. I look in the mirror now and I smile at myself, where before I look in the mirror, I used to think, who can I have an argument with today?
And do you think that's where a lot of the venom came from, especially when in the Frank days, that you were just fighting something within yourself that came out in that anger?
I think so. The more I think about it, the more I get to understand it, and the more at ease I feel with myself now. I wake up now in the morning and I can lay there in bed and I sort of smile to myself, thinking, do you know what, I've been so lucky. I've lived 2 lives in one lifetime. Not many people can do that, and I found the real me.
Do you think if you hadn't been able to be Kellie as we sit here now, you would have had to be dramatic? As you mentioned earlier, many people do end up killing themselves. It is too much to deal with, to fight that every day. At your darkest moments, was that a consideration, that it was either you've got to go and be Kellie or that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I attempted suicide about 3 times, maybe, 3 to 4 times. But I will say at least 2 of those were for attention and trying to get help. But the final one, which was Christmas, December 2012, was one that I was desperate to take my life. My partner had invited me back, because we wasn't divorced at the time, to the family house, and I misread it, thinking that she'd invite me back, thinking that we could try and work this out. So I packed all Kellie's stuff away. I got my hair cut a little bit, and I packed some Frank stuff in a bag, and I turned up at the house with the 2 dogs, and she said, "What's that?" And I went, "Oh, I'm moving back in." She looked at me and she went, "No." She said, "I've invited you back for Christmas Day. You can stay the night in the spare bedroom." She said, "But you got to go tomorrow." She said, "We've made up," and I think that again was a big upset for me, and I was quite upset. So I went down the pub that lunchtime, and I went straight in and I ordered a bottle of champagne and just drank the whole bottle to myself. And then I started on another bottle with some friends that had come in, and the drinks were going. And we went back to the house. Tracy came up and we got into a bit of an argument, because I'd realised I didn't have my credit card. And I said to her, "Can you pay for this and I'll give you the money?" And she went, "Well, I could if someone hadn't stopped my credit card." I'd forgot that I'd stopped her card as well.
Wow.
So it didn't go down very well.
It's a home goal, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was like, okay. So, I mean, the landlord was quite good. He said, I'll pay me or send the money up the next day, because he knew me. I used it quite a lot. And he was quite pleased to see me back in there, because you have to remember, I disappeared out of the public eye and everything, and no one, my friends hadn't seen me or anything. And when I went back to the house, I started taking pills. I went into Tracy's medical cupboard. I took every pill out I could find. I had my own heart pills in my bag and some pills for, I can't remember what they was, painkiller, and I kept taking them all, and I was getting very lightheaded. And I remember sitting on the bed thinking, shit, if I kill myself here, how can these children and Tracy live in this house? Because they've not done nothing to me. This is their home. And I remember my counsellor telling me about suicide when I found one of my boxers, one of my champion boxers, hanging from his radiator, and it all cut. And I went, oh shit. So I sort of put all the pills in my pocket, and I walked downstairs, and I said, in a sort of a drunken voice, sleepy voice, I said, how long's dinner going to be? And Tracy said, probably about 40 minutes. I went, well, I'm going to take the dogs for a quick walk. And as I walked out, I picked up another bottle of wine, and I opened it and put it in my... And I walked down the street taking the pills and drinking them, and I could feel myself going bit by bit, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to wander up to the common, and I'm just going to end it there. And and I had my dogs very loosely in my hand, and they must have saw a cat or a fox, and they ran. And instantly I tried to stop them, but I was like, they pulled me foot, and I fell on the floor and passed out. And next thing I woke up, there's all these people around me, and this girl went, that's Frank Maloney, the boxing promoter. He only lives around the corner. Someone said, well, I've just called an ambulance. And all of a sudden I saw the lights flashing and the ambulance, and I sat up, and the dogs were sitting there licking me, and I went, no, I'm all right, because I knew if I'd got in the ambulance and went to the hospital, I had a lot of explaining to do. And I went, no, I'm all right, I need to. And the ambulance driver said, no. I said, look, I'm fine, I don't want to get in an ambulance, you can't make me. Give me my dogs. And I grabbed it, and I just walked off. And I must have walked for 2.5 hours. Thankfully the bottle had smashed, and I had no more pills in my pocket. So I tried to walk it off. So eventually when I got home, as I walked through the door, Tracy was looking at me, and she went, have you seen this dinner? Look at it. And she just threw the dinner at me, and I went, I need to talk to you. So she came, and she said, what is it? And I told her what. And she looked at me, she went, you are one selfish bastard. You would do that on Christmas Day. Your children would have to live with that forever. Your grandchildren would have to live with that forever. What kind of person are you? Why don't you just accept where you're going, what we've agreed on? We got into a major row that day, and it was the worst Christmas Day we ever had. She ran out of the house, and the next thing I knew, she ran out with Libby. The next thing I knew, I woke up slumped over my car steering wheel with my 2 dogs sitting beside me at my daughter's house in Maidstone. So how I drove from Chislehurst to Maidstone in that state, I'll never know. And my oldest daughter must have got a phone call from Tracy, and she was told, and I sort of told her. She said, I'm taking you to the hospital, and I went, no. And she phoned up the emergency helpline, and they said, whatever you do, keep your father awake. Keep giving them black coffee or strong tea, and just keep talking to them, walking around. And she stayed up all that night walking me till in the morning. I had a couple of hours sleep, and I felt better. And I think it was the next day she questioned me. We went down the pub for a drink, and she questioned me, and she said, why are you doing this? Have you got an incurable illness? Are you dying? And I just said no. I said I don't know. I said, I don't know if I can tell you, I'm all right, but trust me, it was just... And then I thought, you know what, I've got to tell her, because I could see in her face. And I looked that way while she was looking that way, having a cigarette, and I went, I have to tell you, I'm a transsexual. I really believe I should have been born a woman, and that's the life I want to do. And she just looked at me, cuddled me, and she sort of said, well, if that's what you want, then we will have to work it out and see and take it from there. And...
she's an extraordinary woman, isn't she? I mean, all the way along, everything she did was in your best interest.
Yeah, and she still is today. It's quite amazing, isn't it? We joke about it. It's a little bit like role reversal. I feel like I'm the child and she's the parent. But, you know, thankfully she's getting her own life back under normal. She's gone back to work full time. She's I go there and still stay a lot with her. We're still very close. And I am with my other 2 daughters. It's her birthday this Saturday. She's 40, and there's about 100 people going to the party. And we were talking about it last night, and she said, it's going to be the most diversified party I've ever had, she said. She said, we've got policemen coming, we've got barristers coming, we've got lawyers coming. She said, I've got my gay friends coming. She said, Alan's coming because Alan's her godfather. She said, we've got you coming. And she said, we've got some of your friends coming that I've met on your journey. She went, I just wonder I wonder what your normal friends are going to think. She went, I don't know if anyone's normal in my life anymore. So it was so we joke about things like that, in a nice way. And
I can see why you love your dogs so much, because they technically saved your life, didn't they?
Yeah. She said the dogs can't come. They can't come to the party.
They should be on top table, really.
They will be. They will be one day with me. But so my family's been very good, and we've dealt with it in a way that if they want to take the mick, have a joke about it, we do. Nothing is taboo about the subject in our family now, which I think has made everyone comfortable now. And my daughters are great because they'll come up with their friends to the house, and there may be a couple of trans girls there may be some that are only starting their journey who really not perfected certain things, and my daughters will just talk to them and not even blink an eyelid, which I think is fantastic, and it makes them get comfortable. And then my daughters will go, especially Sophie, my 21-year-old, who's a real party animal, she'll go, come on, let's all go out. And the girls will go, well, we can't come out with you. And she went, why not? You're coming out, and we'll just all go out. And they'll take us to clubs with them, and it's that acceptance that's made my life so easy, and it's helped all these other girls friends in my life.
I'm so glad we're here to have this conversation today. It's an inspiring story, and it's been so lovely talking to you. Kellie Maloney is on Twitter. Also, Frankly Kellie, which is the perfectly named autobiography that you did just before Christmas, is out now in paperback. You can get that on Amazon as well. I want to thank you for your time, because there are many people you could talk to, and I really appreciate you sitting with me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.